We are recording the interview of Lucas Schroeder. This interview is being conducted by David Barry from the Wright State University Veteran Voices Project. The interview is being recorded at Wright State University's New Media Incubator in Dayton, Ohio. It is 3 p.m. on February 17th, 2017. Where and when were you born?
I was born on October 23rd, 1990 in Lima, Ohio, which is about an hour north of here.
And then who are your parents and what are their occupations?
My parents are Roy Schroeder and Laura Wishmeyer. So my dad, he was a union carpenter and drywaller for about 30 some odd years. He actually just retired here not too long ago. My mom, she's had several jobs, but currently she is an HR representative for the Husky Oil and Dish manufacturer. Their plant is in Lima, Ohio.
Do you have any siblings?
I have two older brothers, Andrew and Eric. Andrew is 30 and Eric is 32. Eric, he is has his master's in mechanical engineering technology. He actually works, I can't think of the company off the top of my head, but he's pretty much their quality and design engineer, but it's a parts manufacturer for Honda, Toyota, Mitsubishi. So like he's their head manufacturer, so he goes to like Hong Kong, to Tokyo, down to Mexico, and so like whenever they have like a new part or like they need to remanufacture a part, he designs the specs for them, sets up the machinery, and teaches the operators how to use it. And then my middle brother, Andrew, he's currently just like a normal handyman. He's actually does SEMA spouting and like guttering. Yeah, that's pretty much about it on those two.
Did either of them serve in the military?
No, I'm the only one from my immediate family that has served. I've had two cousins that were both in the Marines, and then my grandfather on my mom's side, he was an aviation mechanic in the Navy during World War II. I never got to meet him though. He died when I was real young. But my two cousins that were in the Marines, one, he just actually passed away just a couple months ago from thyroid cancer. He was pretty much a cage kicker. I know he was out in Japan for a little bit, and then he was out in San Jose working at the corrections facility out in there. When he had gotten out, he was actually a sheriff's officer down in Tampa, Florida. And then the other cousin, he was joined right after high school in '06, which was a big shock for us, and he was actually presidential security for George Bush. So that was kind of cool. He got out, and don't really see too much of him. He just kind of fell off the face of the earth with us and just kind of like a little hermit somewhere.
How did that make you feel being the only member of your immediate family to join the military?
It was something I always wanted to do. Not trying to sound like cliche or anything, but I always grew up, you know, Dad was always watching all the John Wayne, Clint Eastwood movies, and the biggest thing that made me want to join was watching John Wayne in The Longest Day, and that was one of the biggest things that actually made me want to go in the Airborne. I was fat in high school, and I was about 260, and, you know, being pretty short at the time, I was only probably about mid 5 foot. So, you know, everyone always just told me, you know, you can't, and, you know, switched my lifestyle around after high school, started working full-time at IMES as a forklift operator, and lost the weight, and I told myself, you know, if I don't do this now, I never will.
And then what was it about the John Wayne movie that inspired you to join the military?
Just the portrayal of the movie. I mean, the movie's such a great movie. I mean, it shows all aspects of the war, but, you know, just his, you know, grittiness and, you know, the fact that, you know, they viewed themselves better than everyone. Like, why wouldn't you want to join the Airborne if they view themselves that, you know, we're better than everyone else?
And then you said that you were a forklift operator before you went into the military. Was there anything else you were doing at that time?
No, so directly after high school, well, during high school, I pretty much worked full-time in a part-time job in a bar and grill. I was in the kitchen, and I would guesstimate that was probably my biggest downfall as far as to my weight situation back then. So after high school, I, you know, needed to find something a little more stable. I didn't really want to go to school because, you know, I was decent at it, but I just didn't really have the drive or motivation to do it. So I started out temping. Me and my one friend, we were both temping out there for a while in what they called their consolidation. So pretty much all we would do is they would get the special orders for like the smaller companies, so not like your PetSmart or whatnot. And so we would just break down pallets and build custom like display pallets. And then from there, we actually both got hired in as forklift operators to work in the warehouse full time. And so that was, you know, case pick where, you know, so like a Walmart would order something. They're not going to buy an entire pallet full of just one specific dog food. So you'd have to build the pallet to whatever they needed. So, you know, 10 bags of this type of food and so on and so forth. And then from case pick went to consolidation, which is we would just take the food that came off the line and we would just move it in the warehouse for storage. And then we would also, depending on, you know, if we had an overflow of a certain amount of food, because it wasn't shipping and whatnot, we would move that and consolidate them all to like a central location for that type. And then I did a little bit of line pull, which is just you're just taking the product directly off the line, off the pallet, and then you're putting it into consolidation. And then a little bit of actual truck loading where, you know, you'd go in, make sure that the tractor trailer is, you know, good enough so where you can drive onto it. You'd get your order, what pallets you would need. You'd go in, scan the pallets on, and then you just load them all into the vehicle. And after working there for about around a year and a half or so, I was like, you know what, I started losing that weight, and I was kind of stuck. I mean, I was at the max that I could make without, you know, being in like a supervisor position. And I was like, is this really what I want to do with my life? And then started losing more and more weight, and I was like, hey, you know, if I don't do this now, I never will.
How did you prepare for that? You said that the weight was an issue for you to join the military. What kind of drove you to work that off, and how are you able to prepare?
A lot of it was actually just change of lifestyle. You know, I got away from all, I don't want to say fast food, but all working in the kitchen, getting away from all the greasy foods, constantly making pizzas, burgers, fries, and things like that. So, you know, working 12-hour nights, because I was from 7 in the evening to 7 in the morning, just only having so little time to eat and whatnot, and always being tired, so that helped a lot. And I still needed to lose some weight, and so I just started running, and once I got down enough, then they finally were like, all right, we'll take you.
Did the recruiters or anyone help you with the running?
I actually had very limited interaction with the recruiters. I went in, like I did a lot of research, and like my dad even told me when I first told him that, hey, I was thinking about joining the Army. He was like, all right, you know, do what you want to do, but make sure, you know, you really look into this, think it over to make sure you want to go through with this. And so it was about a month or so of me looking at all the branches, looking at what I kind of wanted to do, and looking back on my cousins, they were both MPs, so I was like, hey, you know, I want to do this. Because in my mind, I was a little naive kind of going in. Like, I knew what MPs did, but I thought, oh, maybe I could do something cool, like presidential security, like my one cousin did. But that didn't end up happening. But when my first interaction was, I went in, talked to the recruiter, and he's like, all right, well, we're going to have you take a practice ASVAB real quick, because it had been about 5 years or so, almost, since I was out of school, so my ASVAB was already expired. So I retook it, or did the practice ASVAB, and I can't remember exactly what score I had gotten on it, but they're like, all right, you know, you should be good. we'll go ahead and, well, what are you thinking about? And I told him, I'm like, I'm not signing any paperwork unless I get an MP spot and I want airborne. And he's like, all right. He's like, well, I'm not seeing anything right now, but you give me a couple days or whatever. And so about a week or so later, he had called me back saying, hey, I hard slide you for an airborne spot for an MP. He's like, but you're not leaving for, you know, another 8 months. I was like, all right, that's fine, I can wait. So we did that, you know, went down to Columbus the night before my initial MEPS. I took the ASVAB and then did the MEPS.
For those who don't know, what is the ASVAB?
The ASVAB is the standardized testing to gauge your knowledge on certain aspects like reading, writing, how to work with like mechanical objects, and then they just kind of base your scores on what kind of jobs that you can get. I actually ended up scoring a 113 on my ASVAB for my GT score, and most, unless you're like in more specialized fields, 110 is pretty much, you can do almost any job in the military that you want with that score. And so, you know, my recruiter's like, are you really sure you still want to be an MP? I was like, yeah, I'm positive. So fast forward, I was supposed to actually ship out on the 20th or the 21st of January 2012. That actually almost got put on hold because not like New Year's Eve night, but the night of New Year's on, so I guess January 1st, going into the 2nd, my mom was in a really bad car accident. She had rolled her vehicle several times and was partially ejected and found in a ditch. So my recruiter was talking with me real in depth, and he's like, hey, we can put this off, but if we do, you're going to lose your Airborne School. So I had talked it over with my mom, and I was like, are you sure you're going to be all right? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. So I went off and went to basic training from there.
And then, in which branch of the military did you serve?
I was in the Army.
And then were you enlisted or officer?
I was enlisted. I actually, through the Future Soldiers program, I did the whole process where if you do a certain amount of training and pass the PT test, you get promoted. So I actually went in as a rank of an E2 or just normal private. Started basic training in, I want to say February 1st, I want to say was my official start date. Did Oset training, which is one site unit training out at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. That was a 21 weeks there with, you know, all drill sergeants the entire time. It's not split up like basic training and then AIT like a lot of the MOSs are. And actually I had graduated on the Army's birthday, June 14th.
So why did you choose the Army instead of the other branches?
I would say the biggest reason was because I actually got to choose my profession. Like I know, like the Marines and Air Force and whatnot, they like you pick your top whatever, and depending on your GT score and what's available, that's what they give you. And I didn't want that. I knew going in, I want this job. I'm not going to take anything but this job.
And then we started to talk about your basic training. Do you want to go into more detail about that?
Yeah, I was in Echo Company, 795th MP Battalion. I was in 3rd Platoon. My head drill sergeant, he was actually real good. He was, unfortunately, actually ended up leaving about a month left into our Oset training. His drill sergeant time ran up and he had to go do bigger, better things. But
what made him stand out?
Actually, I think it's just because he kind of took me under his wing. Day one, like, I don't want to say I stood out in a good way or a bad way, but I just stood out. They asked us questions like basic general knowledge questions, like on can anyone describe an M4 rifle and things on that nature, and no one else was, and I was, and so they were kind of like all fighting for me to be in their platoon, and he was just kind of the one that took me under his wing, and like so I had a real strong connection with him since day one.
Are you still in contact with him?
Actually, no. I'm not sure what happened to him. For a while there, I was. I know he went overseas to Afghanistan, and from then I just lost contact with him.
And then you said that you went through Oset instead of normal basic training in AIT. Did you find that to be more difficult?
To be honest, since I hadn't gone through like a regular basic in AIT, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the difference would be. It was all, I mean, it was fine. Like I knew going in that, you know, there'll be yelling, screaming, people get in your faces. As long as you just do as you're told, you'll be fine. And so that's exactly what I did. Like, you know, other than day one when I kind of stood out, I just tried to stay in the background, you know, just be a shadow. But it was also nice, you know, actually one of my best friends, I mean, we left Columbus MEPS together, and that's how I first met him. And we were stationed, like we went through training together, same platoon through Airborne School, and we were in 82nd and the 503rd MPs together. So, and it's actually real nice because he's here in Beaver Creek with his wife, and you know, so I'm constantly in contact with him. And
that's great. And then, so after basic training, did you receive any specialty training?
Yeah, I went to, directly after we had about a week and a half holdovers, then they had bused us down to Fort Benning, Georgia for Airborne School for us who had it in our contract, which was just me and two others, my buddy Cody Conley and another kid who he just kind of fell off the face of the earth after a couple months in division with us. But yeah, I showed up. It was 4th of July weekend, that first weekend, so it was real laid back. It was kind of nice having that freedom to be able to do what you want for the most part. Going from, you know, eyes constantly always on you, going through training, to, you know, you're still in training, but it's a school, it's not, you know, your job. So, you know, it was kind of nice, you know, having the nights off after training where you're kind of able to just lounge back, you know, relax, not having to worry about constantly doing stupid things like, you know, drill sergeant coming in, trying to toss the room, looking for contraband, things like that. And the training was just fantastic. I was always looking forward to it. You know, week one's ground week where you're learning all about the harness, how to recover from the drag. Week two, obviously being tower week, you know, jumping out of 34-foot towers, which is a little sketchy at first because how everything's so tight on the tension line. If, you know, you get anything wrong, you're almost getting caught in it and you're gonna kind of be screwed for a while until you get out. But it was fine. And then, you know, I wish we could have gotten the 250-foot tower, but we didn't have time because we had that 4th of July weekend. And I think they actually cut it a couple classes after us. And then, of course, week 3 being jump week was really hectic. I think we did our first jump the first day. We had 2 days in a row where it was canceled because of weather. And so we had 2 jumps the third day, and then the day before graduation, we were only supposed to actually have 1 jump that day, but we ended up having our last 2 jumps on that day. And then, you know, graduation, and I was real shocked because, like, I knew my mom was coming down, and but she came down with my brother, and Andrew, he didn't actually get to make it to my basic training graduation, but my other brother and my dad did. And so it was a huge shock to me, you know, to see him show up, you know, the night before. I was like, oh, Mom didn't tell me you were coming. And so from there, I had 10 days of leave before I actually had to report to Fort Bragg.
So what was it like jumping out of an aircraft?
To be honest, the first couple times I couldn't tell you. Combination of nervous and excited at the same time. I don't remember anything between handing off the static line to the jump master till about, good 5-10 seconds in the air. Like, I don't remember that initial prop blast or, counting to 4,000. I just remember handing off the static line and then, oh crap, I'm in the air. But it was real fun. I will say though that those were probably the best 5 jumps I've ever had because you're landing on a plowed field.
Were the jump fields in Bragg worse than in Benning?
That's an understatement. Fort Benning, it's a giant plowed field, so it's all real nice and soft for you. Majority of the drop zones on Bragg are hard sand. You might have some soft sand every now and then, but it's a lot of sand, a lot of thorn bushes, and a lot of hills. I just remember one day, we get the call saying that, we were at 7 knots because you can't jump unless it's, the winds are under 12 knots. And I just remember the jump master, getting word from the ground because the load master, who's Air Force, they're in charge of opening and closing the doors for us, or arming as they're called. He asked, I can see him and the jump master whispering, and I'm like 3rd or 4th jumper in the line, and I just see the jump master do one of these numbers, 7, and I'm just like, there's no way in hell this is 7 knots. So we actually jump out over the drop zone, and the way Sicily drop zone was set up was like on the far south side of the drop zone is your FLS, which is your field landing strip, and that's where they try to normally drop us off on. The winds were so bad, it's about 3 to 4 kilometers until you get to the tree line. I ended up landing at about 30 meters into that wood line. Luckily, I was only about 3-4 feet off the ground, so I was easily able to drop out of my harness without having to do all the proper procedures of popping my reserve to climb down it. But I just landed. I was just so in shock. I'm just sitting there for about 5 minutes did this just really happen to me? I never expected to land in trees. I knew it was a possibility, I just never expected to do it. But yeah, I know one of our drop zones, Luzon, all it is giant thorn bushes, and just randomly out in the middle, there's a washer and dryer on a giant slab of concrete. So that was actually my very first jump we jumped on Luzon for being on Bragg. And I landed in a thorn bush. I was probably about 5-6 feet long by 5-6 feet wide, and it was pretty windy. So I was trying to, wind was trying to drag me. There was nowhere for me to go because I'm just caught up in this thorn bush, and what am I supposed to do? But yeah, I would say Benning's drop zone was probably one of the greatest that you could ever jump into.
So you said you did a lot of personal training to prepare for joining the military. Did the running you did that help you in basic training or in airborne school?
Yeah, airborne school was a lot of running. Not so much fast-paced running, but just a lot of running. I never considered myself to be a great runner, but it did help out in the long run, just getting myself up to the point where I'd be able to run anywhere from 2 to 4 miles consistently without, really not being, that well in shape. I wasn't in the greatest shape, but I could run 4 miles and, not pass out afterwards.
And then how did you adapt to military life? For example, the barracks, food, social life?
Barracks weren't bad. When I got to 82nd, the biggest thing I didn't like about them, they were the stupid key card access. So for some reason, if the battery would run out or if you accidentally had your phone too close to your key card, you would be locked out of your room. And so you'd have to walk all the way over to battalion staff duty and hey, card's not working. All right, so they'll come over with their master key, unlock it for you. And then if it was the weekend or after work hours, you had to wait because you couldn't get a new card till work day because you had to go to the First Sergeant's Barracks program and you having to remake them. So that was the biggest hassle. It wasn't bad for the first year or so. The way the barracks were set up in 2nd Brigade, they were 2 to a room. You had your own actual private living area. You shared a common area, which was the kitchen and the bathroom. I didn't have a roommate, so it wasn't bad. But when I went over to the 503rd MPs, theirs was similar. This actual like living area was a little bit smaller, but you overall had more room because you had your own bathroom, and the only thing you shared was the kitchen. But biggest thing was it was an actual hard key, so it was almost physically impossible to lose it, or not ever get locked out of your room. Food, through basic training and whatnot, I couldn't even tell you what the food tasted like. You have like 3 to 5 minutes to just inhale it as fast as you can. Just, here's energy. That's all it's for. But being an MP, didn't really eat in DFAC too much. We got BAS, or basic allotment for substance, so we were able to buy our own food. So that was an extra $300 some bucks a month that we didn't have to worry about going to DFAC every day. But DFACs weren't bad every time I would go there. Like, I would always go for breakfast just because, it was like, what, $3 for breakfast? You're not going to be able to buy your own breakfast and make it for $3. But it wasn't bad. Chow food, I would say it was the greatest and the worst. Greatest because you're always hungry, and so you're going to eat it no matter what. But the worst as far as you're eating your eggs and you're like, okay, so all your eggs are always scrambled, but this doesn't look like scrambled eggs because it looks like scrambled eggs, but it's straight water. But other than that, it wasn't bad. Just put some hot sauce or some maple syrup on it and you wouldn't tell the difference.
What about the social life?
Social life, I had my core group of friends that we would always go out. In the 82nd, we were all real close. I was in 2nd Brigade, so the way the MPs were set up when I got there, each brigade had their own platoon of MPs. And so each platoon was assigned to the HHC Higher Headquarters Company for that battalion. And so I was, so all of us were always real close. We were all on the same floor for us MPs, so during the evenings and weekends or whatnot, we'd always have barracks parties. And if we weren't, going out to platoon sergeant's house or squad leader's house or doing something together, there was something wrong. That changed when we were forced out of 82nd, when they reconsolidated and we got kicked over to the 503rd MP battalion. Because if you pretty much hanging out with any sort of an NCO, it was fraternization, and it just wasn't allowed, which I personally thought was stupid. I'm like, I understand if you're drinking with them and whatnot, and you don't have that mutual respect. So, we're buddies on the outside, but come work day, I still treat you like a buddy and you're an NCO. That's not okay. So I get where they're coming from, but at the same time, as long as you have that personal restraint where if your friend outranks you, you respect that. And I don't understand why they just had to be so uptight about it, but that's just my opinion.
And then where did you serve?
I was in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I was there directly after Airborne School from July of 2012 until I ended up getting out in December of actually just this last year, 2016. Like I said, I was in 82nd, 2nd Brigade, which my battalion was the 2BSTB, which is Brigade Special I can't even talk now. 2 BSTB is 2nd Brigade Special Troops Battalion. And so you have like your infantry unit or your infantry battalions, which for 2nd Brigade was 1st and 2nd 325. And then you would have like your artillery, and you would have your CAVs, and your well, I guess now they have the engineers again. But so the BSTBs were, for the most part, your excess medics, because obviously you need medics per each battalion, but you'd have the excess medics, you would have the chem people, military intelligence, as well as the engineers, and then us. And so we were the necessity of the battalion, but since we couldn't each have our own individual battalion, we were all just kind of lumped some into one battalion. So like I said, I did 2 years there, and then due to the downsizing and the reconstruction of the Army as a whole, we were moved over to the 503rd MP Battalion, and I was actually part of the 108th MP Company, which is actually a very unique company. Not only is the 503rd MP Battalion the only battalion in the United States Army that are strictly airborne MPs. So there's no other airborne MPs anywhere else other than on Fort Bragg. But on top of that, my company was the only one that was both airborne and air assault qualified. So we had a lot of double duty tasks that we had to do.
What were some of those duties?
So other than your normal training exercises, which would be twice a year just because obviously we would have to work the road, but you'd have your airborne operations to maintain airborne proficiency. We would have to do that once every 3 months. Typically it was about once a month for us. And then on top of that, if you were air assault qualified, you would have to take part in air assault operations, mostly sling load operations, where they were specialized in loading like our Humvees, our water buffaloes, and just the equipment that we would use on a daily basis to whatever helicopter that we had allotted for us. We did actually do some actual air assault missions that weren't sling load operations, but they were just real few and far in between. But we're the only company that was actually physically allotted for both of those in the entire United States Army.
Wow. And what were some of your just normal duties from day to day?
So normal day to day was anywhere from, you had 3 options. You had platoon duty, you had road cycle, and you had gate cycle. Platoon duty was you were just a normal person. You're going down to the motor pool, PMCSing, preventive maintenances, checks and services on your Humvees, on your radios, and any piece of equipment, cleaning weapons, so on and so forth. Just your basic mundane tasks, doing layouts, things like that. Road duty or road cycle, I can't remember what they changed them all to now, but all you were doing was working the road. You were patrolling out on the road in your patrol car. So you'd normally do 1 month of that, 1 month of platoon duty, 1 month of road cycle, 1 month of gate cycle, and then you just be rotating that throughout the company. I know they've done some reforming since I've last worked the road, where instead of one platoon would just be strictly on gates, one would be strictly on road, and then the other one would be amber or backfill. So they would backfill for the road or gates, whatever. And so then that platoon would be the one that would be on platoon duty. They started integrating it where they were calling it consolidated schedule. So they would just take people from this platoon, this platoon, this platoon. You guys are on the road. Then they would do the same thing for the gates, and then whoever was left over, which wasn't very many, they would be the people on platoon duty. So they kind of counterbalanced the month on, month off type of rotation. So working the road was just as you can pretty much imagine it. You're sitting in a patrol car, driving around in your specific sector, patrol area, and just waiting for a call. actively patrolling, as we like to call it, where you're driving around, you're not just sitting looking for that one guy to run that red light or that stop sign like I know everyone hates. But yeah, you were actually, weather was nice enough, get out of your patrol car and walk for almost half of it. Like, especially like during the summer and whatnot, I don't think I ever spent more than half of my time in a patrol car if I couldn't help it. Just walking around, talking to people at barbecues, whatnot. And as sad as it is to say, and we technically weren't supposed to do it, I would love going to like people's parties and barbecues, give you free food. I mean, why not? Plus, I mean, you're checking up, showing them that, hey, we have a presence here, that, you guys should feel safe because we are here. But a lot of people wouldn't do that. And then gates were your typical mundane gates where you're standing out there for 8 hours, just checking IDs, searching vehicles, making sure no one's bringing any contraband on post. So that's pretty much it on a normal daily routine. Like, unless we would go out into the field, which was actually what I always looked forward to, because that's what I joined the Army for. Like, obviously, I chose MP, so I knew going in I was gonna work the road. But I joined to do Army things, to shoot, move, and communicate. So, when I was in the 82nd, that's all we did. We were in the field, we were in the field, we were in the field. If we weren't in the field, we were at a range. If we weren't at a range, you were doing barracks maintenance or weapons maintenance. That was it. Like, I want to say, my first week on Fort Bragg, I was in a live fire shoot house. Like, actually, funny thing about that, actually my very first team leader, God rest his soul, he had passed away on us. I actually, being a brand new private, and he's my specialist team leader, I turned around and yelled at him, like straight up chewed him out during that live fire shoot house, because we took turns. Everyone would be number 1 man, 2 man, 3 man, 4 man. And the way our company commander had it was we had to walk through it by yourself and verbally describe what every man's job and duty was. And only then were you proficient enough to go into dry runs, and then from there blank runs, and from there actual live fire. Well, he was number 4 man, and I was in front of him. I think I was either the number 1 or, I was a 2 man. But we got done clearing the first room, and I'm giving the number 1 man the nod because I had the clearest path to the next room. And like, as I go to take a step, I just hear a boom, and I just feel a bullet whiz right by my head. I called, ceasefire. The CEO up on top called ceasefire, and I just turned around and just started yelling at him. I was like, and I'm surprised I actually didn't get in trouble for it, but, it was my life. Like, I could have been gone like that. But, so we did a lot of shoot houses like that, a lot of live fire, like squad live fires, either in Humvees, or actually just like on the ground, just like, completely spread out, like how you would defend a battle position. But like, I would say my favorite, shoot house range that we did, we were actually doing gunnery, which I'm pretty sure you're well aware of being Cav Scout. We were doing it with 2nd Brigade's Cavs, the Black Falcons, and it was a 3-day range. And so, we were out there for the entire 3 days, all just sleeping in our trucks, just sucking. And but when it was our turn to go, it was fantastic. You did a day run, and then you did a night run. During the day run, I was a gunner at the time, so it was more fun for me than anyone else. But calling out your targets and whatnot. But we had 3 helos for our air support that we had to call in for close air support. We had 2 Kiowas and an Apache. And then on top of that, they would end up having to land because we actually had a squad of Marine 60mm mortars that were attached to us for this range as well. So then when we got to the end of the range, we would do our call for fire mission, and then they would start shelling the impact range after, like, that's beyond the actual live fire. That was probably one of the coolest. We did a lot of training with like the aviation medics. So that was always pretty cool to be able to like get hoisted up either with like a jungle penetrator or actually in a Skedco litter, and just being able to do hands-on training with the flight medics, because that's something a lot of people don't get to do. But we did a lot of training. We were on GRF for an entire year, which is Global Response Force. So we were the QRF of the entire nation. So if anything would pop off, the president would pick up the phone and say, hey, we need to go here. That was our job. Our goal was we had an 18-hour timeline where we had 18 hours to load all of our vehicles, don chutes, and be out to whatever country we were going to. And we actually had to meet that timeline. We did it for training exercise because apparently the sec dev was like, hey, let's see if you guys can actually do this. So we did it. But we actually, I remember it was February of 13. My battalion was out training. We were doing a chemical sticks lane. We were playing Op 4 for the other people to get some of the more combat related MOSs to, go through these lanes. And it was about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we actually got recalled to go back because we were actually supposed to deploy to Syria. That didn't end up happening, but, we had to do the whole, hey, we're packing our room, we're going. But other than that, that was probably the closest thing I ever had gotten to a deployment, other than special mission. When I was in the 108th MP company, we were supposed to go to Dubai for just a security mission, just 6 months long. Non-combat, just, hey, you guard this compound. But unfortunately, I had gotten hurt, and that didn't happen.
Now, being an MP, did you ever witness any casualties?
Actually, unfortunately, yes. Actually, one of my best friends, I was actually first responder to her fatal accident. It was on a training jump. We had gotten the new T-11 parachutes, and they were different from the T-10s, as you know. They had missed that the main curve pin was routed wrong. And so she was a towed jumper behind her. When his chute deployed, his risers completely snapped her neck and almost completely severed her head. She was one of the very first people I met when I got on post. But yeah, I had that and a couple, car crashes I don't really want to talk too much about. But and then memorial band that I'm wearing, my very first team leader was actually very sad. He had just gotten word he was supposed to go to 173rd, and see, he was so excited. Hey, I'm going to Italy. I'm going to Italy. Well, he had just had a son with his wife, and he was actually we were out front smoking, started his car, and because his wife was going to meet him with the baby and they were going to go together. Well, I got done smoking, he was still smoking, we went inside, and about 10 minutes later his wife comes running in, he was face down blue next to his car, had a heart attack. But one of the best guys I knew, taught me almost everything I knew up to that point, and miss you, Donnie.
And then you said that you had a really close camaraderie in your unit.
Mm-hmm.
How did that spark up, other than just going to barbecues and partying outside of the work area?
I mean, we were just always together, like at work or off work. Like if there wasn't 3 or 4 of us together, either at the gym, just driving around, just doing whatever, we were just that close. I mean, it's hard to explain like what we would do on a daily basis because I couldn't tell you. But most of us were inseparable. And I miss it. Like, I will say there's not a whole lot about the military other than the fun aspects, the jumping, the shooting and whatnot. There's not a whole lot I'd miss other than the camaraderie that we had, because those friends are never going to go away.
And then you said that for recreation, you guys would go to cookouts and the gym and ride around. Was there anything else you guys would do for fun?
Every now and then we would have like a squad on squad like paintball match. Like we would go out to the local paintball range and do some woods ball or some speed ball, but for the most part it was just us and the barracks just doing what barracks people do. I'm not really gonna talk too much about that, but just typical things that hanging out, playing video games, drinking with each other, just having fun.
And then how was it staying in touch with family members back home?
During basic and stuff, I was writing a lot because that's all you pretty much can do. But for the most part, about once a week, once every 2 weeks, I'd try to get in contact with my mom and dad because, always being busy and especially being a MP, working odd hours, like, I would say the scariest one was not New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, 2012. Tried calling my mom and dad. They were both divorced. Neither one of them would answer. Obviously, like, I'm on mid-shift, which is, then it was 9 to 5. And we had gotten a call of a domestic assault with a weapon. And on our way, I was actually one of the only 2 patrols that was available. It was me and the duty officer. And a guy had barricaded himself into his house and had a rifle. And, he was pointing at us as we were blocking everything off. And that was probably one of the scariest moments when, I couldn't get in contact with them. Like, I know I didn't get in contact with them a lot, but, like, when I really needed to, none of them answered, like, on my way there, just trying to say, hey, in case something happens. But other than that, every couple, once every week or two, call up mom, talk for about half an hour, and I'd almost have to hang up on her because you'd never shut up. But like my dad, he's not big of a talker, and so, I could, call him, talk to him for 20 seconds, and that'd be the end of the conversation. I remember one letter that I want to say it was the only letter I got from him in basic, was like on a little piece of notebook paper, and it was like 4 sentences long. But that's just the way he is. Like, I know he cares and whatnot, but he's just not big of a talker. But for the most part, it was just staying busy, and when I wasn't busy, just doing things with my buddy. Just didn't really talk too much. Family back home.
And then how did you return home?
Well, it was June of 14 that I actually started the process. It was a nighttime jump. I wouldn't say it went bad other than the landing. I was landing down a hill, and my left leg had hit before my right, and my knee just completely buckled sideways on me. Being as every soldier does, I put it off and just limped to the assembly area, and I was like, all right, let's go. But one of the main things was we were going on DSURF mission, which was a chemical response force. So our main objective would be, like, if it was too big for FEMA to handle, we would come in. And so us being MPs, our primary duty was dislocated civilians. So if chemical or biological attack would happen, you lost your home, we would, help deal with you to, like, get you where you needed to go. So we didn't have the funds to send everyone, so I was one of them that got picked. And so I was like, I'm not jeopardizing this because, this is training that needs to be done. So it was about 4 months after I initially went in. Every time I'd run, my knee would swell up so big and be purple. My squad leader was finally like, you're going to get that checked out. Took about another 4 months for him to actually get an MRI. Here, everything was intact, so there was nothing they would really do, or that's what they told me. But they said there was scar tissue on your ACL, your or your ACL, your MCL, your meniscus, and your patella tendon. They're like, well, since nothing's torn, we can't do surgery. We're going to put you into physical therapy. So I did about 3 months, or not 3 months, 3 spouts of physical therapy, getting kicked out every time, and then finally they're like, all right, we're going to med board you. So the med board actually just went through, and I actually started my terminal leave here on the day before Thanksgiving of 2016. So, you know, had everything packed up and just drove 10 hours, and I was like, hey, my dad knew I was coming home. It was actually a surprise for my mom because she had no idea. And actually, she called me on Thanksgiving, and I came up with some lie saying that I was visiting my friend up in Raleigh and just kind of sounded real bum, and showed up, and you know, she started bawling and everything. She's like, oh my God, you're such a jerk, and it was fun.
I mean, that must have been a real shock for her because not only are you home, but you're home for good.
Yeah.
That's good. So you've only been out a short time now,
Yep.
right? So how has it been adjusting back to civilian life?
It hasn't been hard. I would say just not having to wake up for formation every day is fantastic. But just, you know, being able to go to school, since it was something I didn't get to do when I was younger, it's actually really beneficial for me, just because I knew if I would have done it when I was younger, I wouldn't have had this drive that I did. I would have put it off, you know, not going to class and whatnot. And so I think it was the best choice for me, to be honest. Just doing what I had to do, get that out of my system, and go and do bigger, better things.
And then, have you remained in contact with anyone you served with?
Yes. My best friend, Brendan, he's down in Georgia. He goes to UNG there. He was actually med boarded about at the beginning of the last year was when he got out. He was actually a toe jumper in Airborne School. On his 5th jump, the guy behind him checked him into the door, and he went out holding onto his static line and had a complete lateral tear of his bicep. But he's down there in Georgia, and him and I talk about every couple days. Talked to my one buddy, Conley, like I told you at the beginning, since he's here in Beaver Creek, talked to him quite a bit. And then I talked to one of my NCOs just about as much as I talked to Brendan every couple days. And those were the main real ones I was real close with.
And is that normally through text message or Facebook? Or
Text messaging, calling, just whatever, you know. Facebook sometimes, but mostly texting or calling.
And are you a member of any veterans organizations?
Yes, I'm part of our Vets League here, and I am part of the Eagles back at home. Not the Eagles, the not the VFW, but whatever the other one is. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
AMVETS?
Huh?
AMVETS?
The Legion.
Oh, for.
I don't know why I was drawing a blank there.
And then, what do you do for the Vets League?
I actually just joined it, so I mean, I haven't gotten to go into a meeting yet. So I'm just looking forward to doing whatever I can to help veterans out, both here on campus and elsewhere. Like I know whenever I see any. Just the other day, I was going into Kroger's, and there was a couple vets out there. They were taking collections for like money, school supplies, and everything for vets and their families. And always whenever I see that, I try to drop in like a 20 or whatnot to help them out.
And then, how did your military experience affect your life?
I would honestly say it did a complete 180 for me. Like I was already pretty disciplined going in, always respected everyone. But as far as the physical ability, being overweight, out of shape, and it really changed my perspective on life. I'm a lot more active than what I used to be. I can't really run anymore, but I still like to try to maintain as active as I possibly can be.
And then what are some life lessons you learned from your military service?
Take a lot of things with a grain of salt. You might have to do something that you don't want to, just bite your lip and go.
Words to live by. How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
It hasn't really impacted it too much. I will say, though, I have learned a lot on as far as policies. I honestly, not trying to get political or whatnot, but especially with this war that we're fighting right now, that's an unwinnable war against terrorism. You just have to let us go. There has to be some sort of ROE, but it can't be as tight as it is, or else it's never gonna get any better.
When you say just let us go, what do you mean by that?
I'm not gonna say like go out and like pillage and burn things, but if an area that we know is 85%, tied within terrorism, but yet you still have that 15% that's civilians. I'm not saying let's go in and just kill everyone in there, but if we're in that area and our ROE is so strict where, even if we're taking fire, if there's a civilian in the way, civilian casualties happen. It's war. But I think we're trying to get too political with it where they're not allowing us to do our job. That is our job. War is our job. Let us do our job.
And now I only have a couple more questions left for you. Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to this interview?
No, not really.
And what message would you like to leave for future generations who will see this interview?
For future generations, Airborne is amazing. I suggest, if it's still around, I would suggest go do it. Just, if you're going to join, have fun with it. There's going to be days where it's going to suck. You're going to be digging foxholes, filling sandbags, for 4 hours of the day, and then the rest of the day you're just sitting there behind a machine gun just looking at a bunch of trees just waiting for something. Just have fun with it. Find that little thing and just hold on to it. Let that be your drive and just take that and go.
Sure. Well, this concludes our interview. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.